Black man stopped from entering bank, stunned security by revealing his identity. Marcus Williams took a deep breath as he tried to maintain his composure under the curious stares directed at him in the lobby of the National Investment Bank. It was his first day on the job after years of study and dedication, but what should have been a moment of pride was turning into public humiliation. "You can't go through," one of the security guards exclaimed, firmly blocking his path to the executive area. Marcus noticed other clients, all white, walking in freely without being stopped. He adjusted the tie of his impeccable suit, bought especially for the occasion, and tried to explain once more. "I work here. Today is my first day as investment director," Marcus said in a controlled voice, though he could feel his heart racing. "Everyone says that," the second guard replied with a smirk. "We need to see your ID." People around them watched the scene, some uncomfortable, others indifferent. Marcus noticed bank employees observing the incident without intervening. With a calm that masked his indignation, he opened the leather portfolio he carried and pulled out his newly issued corporate badge. "Here." He extended the official document with the bank's gold logo, identifying him not just as an employee but as the new Regional Operations Director, transferred directly from headquarters in New York to take one of the most prominent positions in the Chicago branch. The shock was immediate. The guards' eyes widened as they checked the name and photo, followed by the title in gold letters: Dr. Marcus Williams, Regional Executive Director. The first guard swallowed hard while the second began to stammer an apology. "Dr. Williams, please forgive us. No one informed us you'd be arriving today, Cease," the older guard said, now overly polite. Marcus simply nodded and walked forward, feeling the weight of the stairs following him. This was only the beginning of what promised to be a challenging journey, one that would change not just his life but potentially transform the entire culture of one of the most traditional financial institutions in the United States. In the private elevator ascending to the executive floor, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. A distinguished economics graduate from Berkeley with an MBA from Harvard, he had built a solid career in international finance before accepting the invitation to return home. What drew him wasn't just the prestigious position but the opportunity to implement financial inclusion projects in underserved communities, something the bank's president, Dr. Thompson, had personally promised to support. When he reached the 15th floor, he was greeted by Barbara Johnson, the executive secretary of the board, a woman in her 60s who, unlike the guards, seemed genuinely happy to meet him. "Dr. Williams, welcome. We've been looking forward to your arrival," she said with a warm smile. "Dr. Thompson is in a video conference right now, but he asked me to show you to your office and introduce you to the other directors." The office assigned to Marcus was spacious, with a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. Barbara explained the details of the executive floor as he took in the elegant, understated decor. Dark wood furniture, artwork by Chicagoan artists on the walls, and a framed photograph of the bank's historic headquarters, founded in 1923. "The meeting with the full executive team is scheduled for 2 p.m., Barbara informed him. "Would you like some coffee while you settle in?" "Yes, please," Marcus replied, trying to relax. Once alone, he sent a message to his wife, Michelle. "I'm here." "I'll tell you the details later." The reply came immediately. "I'm so proud of you. You're going to crush it." Those simple words gave him strength. Marcus had met Michelle in college when they were both scholarship students, and she had always been his safe harbor. Now with their 5-year-old daughter, Emma, they had moved to Chicago believing in a promising fresh start. He couldn't let incidents like the one at the bank entrance shake his confidence. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus entered the meeting room where 10 executives, mostly white men over 50, awaited his arrival. Lawrence Thompson, the bank's chairman, a distinguished man with graying hair and an imposing presence, stood to greet him. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marcus Williams, our new Regional Director of Operations," Thompson announced enthusiastically. "Marcus comes from our headquarters in New York and brings with him an impressive international background. We're certain his innovative ideas will be invaluable to our institution." One by one, the directors introduced themselves. Marcus noticed curious glances. some genuinely warm, others clearly assessing. No one mentioned the incident at the entrance, but he sensed the news had already spread. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. During the meeting, they discussed the region's key financial indicators, ongoing projects and goals for the next quarter. Marcus listened attentively, taking occasional notes and contributing when relevant. He was determined to prove his competence from the very beginning. What about the financial inclusion project for underserved communities? Marcus asked when Thompson opened the floor for new topics. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. It was Richard Harrison, the risk director, a stern-faced man who broke it. Dr. Williams, here in Chicago, we have regional peculiarities that need to be considered before moving forward with such initiatives, he said condescendingly. That's exactly why I'm asking, Marcus replied calmly. I'd like to understand those peculiarities to adapt the project to the local reality. Perhaps it's best we discuss this another time, Thompson interjected, checking his watch. We have a packed agenda today. Marcus nodded but made a mental note. Something about that reaction didn't sit right with him. The Financial Inclusion Project was one of the main reasons he had accepted the position, and Thompson had seemed enthusiastic about it during the hiring process. As the meeting ended and executives filed out, Tamara Jenkins, the marketing director, and the only other black person on the executive team, approached Marcus. Welcome to NIB, Marcus. If you need anything, I'm here, she said with a smile that seemed to hint at something more. Thank you, Tamara. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the bank when you have time. Of course. How about coffee tomorrow? Morning, she suggested, lowering her voice. There are a few things you should know. Intrigued, Marcus agreed to the meeting. When he returned to his office, he found Barbara organizing files on his desk. Dr. Williams, here are the reports from the last 3 quarters you requested, along with the service history by city district, she said efficiently. Thank you, Barbara. And please, just call me Marcus. The secretary smiled, seeming to appreciate the gesture but maintaining formality. As you wish, Dr. Marcus. Oh, I forgot to mention, your temporary parking pass is ready. You can pick it up at the main reception on your way out. Have you met Ms. Eleanor yet? No, who's Ms. Eleanor? She's been working in cleaning for over 30 years. She knows every corner of this bank and practically everyone who's passed through here, explained Barbara with a tone of reverence. She always says she can read people better than any security system. Marcus smiled, appreciating the information. In his experience, long-term employees like Ms. Eleanor often understood the organizational culture better than any executive. The rest of the afternoon was spent reviewing reports and familiarizing himself with the regional operational structure. By 6:30 p.m., when most employees had already left, Marcus decided it was time to head home. As he passed through the main lobby, he noticed the same security guards from the morning were still at their posts. They immediately stood straight and greeted him with excessive formality. Good evening, Dr. Williams. Have a wonderful night, said the older one, visibly nervous. Marcus simply nodded and continued on his way. In the parking lot, while searching for his car, he noticed a woman around 70 years old, wearing a cleaning uniform, watching him. When their eyes met, she smiled and approached. You must be Dr. Marcus Williams, she said, with a strong Chicago accent. I'm Eleanor Washington. I've worked here longer than most of those directors. It's a pleasure, Ms. Eleanor, Marcus replied, extending his hand, which she shook with surprising firmness. Barbara told me about you today. Oh, Barb is a good girl, Eleanor remarked fondly. Doctor, forgive me for intruding, but I saw what happened this morning. What they did to you wasn't right. Marcus felt a wave of emotion, surprised by the woman's frankness. You were there. I've been at this bank for 34 years, Doctor. I see everything, even when people think I'm not looking, she smiled, revealing the wisdom of someone who observes more than she speaks. I just wanted to say I'm glad to see you here. My grandson Darius is studying business in college. Who knows, maybe one day he'll follow in your footsteps. That would be great, Marcus replied, genuinely touched. You'll face some obstacles here, Dr. Marcus. This bank has traditions, not all of them good, but maybe you can help change some of them, Eleanor said with a penetrating gaze. I'll do my best, Miss Eleanor. I know you will. I have an eye for people who make a difference. She gently squeezed his arm. Now go home, family is important, tomorrow's another day. With those words, Ms. Eleanor walked away, leaving Marcus deep in thought. As he drove home through Lincoln Park, where they had rented an apartment, he reflected on the day's events. When he arrived, he was greeted by Emma's enthusiastic hug and Michelle's loving kiss. The aroma of Chicago-style seafood stew filled the still partially unpacked apartment from their recent move. So how was the big director's first day? Michelle asked as she served dinner. Marcus hesitated, reluctant to share the embarrassing episode right away. But Michelle, who knew him so well, immediately sensed something had happened. Mark, what's wrong? She pressed, sitting beside him. With a sigh, he recounted the incident with the security guards. As he spoke, he saw Michelle's face grow more indignant. That's unacceptable, she exclaimed when he finished. You should formally report this, and start my tenure being seen as the director who made a scene on day one, Marcus questioned. I'm not sure that's the best strategic approach. Strategy? Michelle frowned. Mark, this is about dignity. If we let it slide, we're normalizing that behavior. Is Mommy mad? Emma asked, watching her parents' conversation with attentive eyes. No, sweetheart, Michelle replied, softening her expression. Mom is just worried about some work things. After Emma went to bed, Marcus and Michelle continued their conversation on the apartment balcony overlooking the ocean at Gold Coast. I understand your concern, said Marcus, taking a sip of wine, but I need to be pragmatic. I came here to implement changes, projects that could benefit many people. If I create a hostile environment right from the start, I might jeopardize all of that. And you think the environment isn't already hostile? Michelle shot back. A university sociology professor, she always had a more direct view on discrimination issues. Mark, you've always said you wanted to make a difference. Maybe this is exactly the opportunity. Marcus fell silent, gazing at the city lights. Michelle was right, as usual. But he also knew he needed to be strategic if he truly wanted to bring about lasting change. I'll talk to Tamara tomorrow, he finally said. She invited me for coffee and seemed to have something important to share. Maybe she can give me a better sense of the lay of the land. Michelle nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. Just don't let them belittle you, Mark. You earned your place here. No one can take that away from you. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the bank early, hoping to avoid another incident. To his surprise, there was a new pair of security guards at the main entrance, who respectfully greeted him when they recognized him. In the elevator, he noticed how some people avoided getting in when they saw him, preferring to wait for the next one. Others kept conversations that abruptly died down as he approached. Tamara was already waiting for him at the bank's internal cafe, located on the mezzanine overlooking the main lobby. Elegant in her red suit, she exuded a confidence Marcus immediately admired. Good morning, Marcus. I hope you slept well after your interesting first day, she said with an understanding smile. Good morning, Tamara. I'll admit, I had a restless night. They placed their orders, and once they were relatively alone, Tamara got straight to the point. Marcus, I'll be frank with you. The NIB is a traditional institution with deep-rooted practices that don't change overnight. What happened yesterday wasn't accidental. What do you mean? The guards were following an unofficial but widely practiced access filtering protocol. She made air quotes. Basically, people who don't fit the NIB profile are questioned more rigorously. Marcus felt a knot in his stomach. And what exactly is that profile? You know exactly what it is, Tamara replied with a meaningful look. I've been at the bank for 8 years. I was the first black woman director in the institution's history. I know exactly what you're facing and what's still ahead. Why are you telling me this? Because when I was hired, someone warned me, and it made all the difference. In my survival strategy here, she took a sip of coffee. But also because something is changing. Your hiring wasn't unanimous among the board. Dr. Thompson had to push hard, especially because of the financial inclusion project, which is being subtly sabotaged from what I saw yesterday. Exactly, Tamara confirmed. There are directors who believe opening branches in underserved communities or making credit more accessible to low-income entrepreneurs is an unnecessary risk. Richard Harrison leads that opposition. Marcus processed the information, connecting the dots with the behavior he'd observed in the meeting. What about Dr. Thompson? He seemed genuinely interested in the project during my hiring process. Dr. Thompson is pragmatic. He supports the project mainly because he sees the market potential and the positive image it would bring the bank. But don't expect him to openly oppose the more conservative directors. I see. And what's your position in all this? Tamara smiled, leaning forward. Why do you think I wanted to have coffee with you? I've been trying to push similar initiatives for years, always hitting roadblocks. Your arrival is an opportunity to finally make some changes happen. Marcus felt less alone for the first time since joining the bank. Any practical advice for me? Document everything. Every conversation, every decision, every rejection. Build your case with solid data showing how financial inclusion can be profitable for the bank. And most importantly, build alliances. Not everyone here resists change. Like Ms. Eleanor? Marcus asked with a small smile. Tamara laughed. I see you've already met our walking encyclopedia. Yes, people like Eleanor are invaluable, but also seek allies among mid-level managers, especially those from branches serving more diverse areas of the city. They know the untapped potential of those communities. Returning to his office after coffee with Tamara, Marcus found a small envelope on his desk. Inside was a handwritten note. Dr. Marcus, my grandson Darius went through the same thing you did when he tried to open an account here at the bank, but without a director's badge to show. He gave up and went to another bank. How many talents are we losing because of this? Don't let this continue, Eleanor. The message struck Marcus deeply. This wasn't just about him or his personal experience, but a systemic issue affecting countless people. He tucked the note in his drawer and began working on a plan. In the weeks that followed, Marcus immersed himself in the bank's routine. He made it his mission to learn every department, visit branches in different neighborhoods, and meticulously analyze performance data. At the same time, he quietly worked on his financial inclusion project, compiling statistics and success stories from similar initiatives at other banks worldwide. One afternoon, while reviewing reports in his office, he received an unexpected visit. It was Terence Brown, one of the security guards who had stopped him on his first day. Dr. Williams, sorry to bother you, Terence said, visibly nervous at the door. Can I speak with you for a minute? Surprised, Marcus invited him in. How can I help you, Terence? The guard hesitated, looking at his hands before speaking. I came to apologize for what happened on your first day. The way we acted wasn't right. I appreciate the apology, Terence, but I'm curious. Why come to me now, weeks later? Because, he hesitated again, gathering courage, because yesterday I was transferred to the Beverly Hills branch. When I asked why, my supervisor said it'd be better if I stayed away from headquarters for a while, especially the executive floor. Marcus frowned, understanding the implication. You're being punished for the incident with me? Officially, it's just a routine staff rotation, Terence explained. But we all know the truth. Dwayne, the other guard who was with me that day, got transferred to a branch in Southside Chicago, considered a demotion in security. I see, Marcus said, processing the information. But that doesn't explain why you came to me. Terence took a deep breath before answering. Because I want you to know we were following orders. There's an unofficial protocol for handling people who don't fit the bank's profile. He made air quotes, just as Tamara had. Especially at headquarters, where the big clients and executives are. Who gave those orders? Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. It comes straight from security management, Mr. Donovan, but everyone knows the directive comes from higher up, the executive floor. Marcus thanked Terence for his honesty and promised that their conversation would stay between them. After the security guard left, he remained still for several minutes, contemplating the implications of what had been said. It was becoming increasingly clear that the problem was structural, deeply rooted in the institution's culture. Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. At the next morning's weekly board meeting, Marcus decided to address the issue of the financial inclusion project head-on, as it kept being postponed under various pretexts. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began when it was his turn to speak, "over the past few weeks I've carefully studied the untapped market potential in the underserved areas of Chicago. I'd like to share some preliminary findings." With precision and clarity, Marcus presented statistics highlighting the unexplored opportunities: thousands of informal entrepreneurs without access to proper credit, entire communities relying on loan sharks due to the lack of accessible banking, services, and the significant growth of the lower middle class seeking financial products tailored to their needs. "What I propose," he continued, "is a pilot project in the Bronx community, a model branch offering services for micro-entrepreneurs, financial education, and guided microcredit programs." A heavy silence fell over the room when he finished. Predictably, Richard Harrison was the first to raise an objection. "Dr. Williams, I admire your enthusiasm, but I fear you're underestimating the risks. These areas have high default rates and security concerns that could make the operation unfeasible." "Actually," Marcus countered, prepared for this argument, "the data shows the opposite. Well-managed microcredit programs have lower default rates than conventional loans. As for security, several institutions already operate in these areas without major issues." "Still," Dr. Thompson interjected cautiously, "the initial investment would be substantial for an uncertain return." "That's why I suggest a pilot project with clear evaluation metrics," Marcus replied. "If we don't meet the established goals within 12 months, we reassess the strategy." The discussion continued for nearly an hour, with directors divided over the proposal. To Marcus's surprise, some showed enthusiastic support, particularly Vanessa Carter, Director of Social Responsibility, and Jonathan Peters, Chief Financial Officer, who saw the potential for market expansion. In the end, Dr. Thompson made a Solomon-like decision. "We'll form a committee to thoroughly evaluate the project's feasibility. Marcus, you'll lead the group, along with Richard, Vanessa, and Jonathan. Present a full report in 30 days. It wasn't the approval Marcus had hoped for, but it was progress. After the meeting, Tamara congratulated him on his approach. It was smart to focus on the numbers. They can't argue against solid data. Still, putting Richard on the committee is practically guaranteeing opposition, Marcus observed. True, but having Vanessa and Jonathan is a win. Vanessa is respected by everyone, and Jonathan has Dr. Thompson's absolute trust in financial matters. In the following weeks, Marcus balanced his regular duties as director with developing the pilot project. The committee met frequently, with Richard questioning every aspect of the proposal, while Vanessa and Jonathan offered valuable input to strengthen the plan. At the same time, Marcus began noticing subtle shifts in the bank's atmosphere. Employees, who had once avoided him, now greeted him more naturally. Some branch managers sought his guidance for specific situations, recognizing his experience, and Ms. Eleanor, always observant, occasionally left newspaper articles about entrepreneurship in underserved communities on his desk. One afternoon, while visiting the French Quarter branch for a routine evaluation, Marcus was approached by an elderly woman who recognized him immediately. "You're Marcus Williams, aren't you?" she asked, her eyes shining with emotion. "Yes, that's me," Marcus confirmed, intrigued. "My goodness, how you've grown," she exclaimed. "I'm Dorothy Coleman, your elementary school teacher at Washington Elementary School." Marcus then recognized her, feeling a wave of nostalgia. Mrs. Coleman had been one of the biggest influences in his life, one of the few people who truly believed in his potential when he was growing up in the humble South Side neighborhood. "Mrs. Coleman, what a joy to see you," he said, genuinely moved. "When I saw your photo in the paper talking about your appointment as bank director, I could hardly believe it. I remember you as a bright boy who always said you'd change things when you grew up." They talked for a few minutes, with Dorothy proudly sharing how she'd followed his journey through occasional news stories. Before saying goodbye, she held his hands firmly. "Never forget where you came from, Marcus. Your story can inspire so many other boys and girls who think they don't have a chance. That chance encounter rekindled something in Marcus. On his way back to headquarters, he detoured through the Bronx, the community where he planned to implement the pilot project. He walked the bustling streets, observing the vibrant businesses, people working, children returning from school. That reality, so far from the quiet, air-conditioned halls of the bank, was now part of his responsibility too. Back in his office, Marcus found Richard Harrison waiting for him. "Williams, we need to talk," Richard said without preamble as Marcus entered. "I just heard you visited the Bronx alone, without security, without telling anyone." "Yes, I did. I needed to see the community where we're planning to implement the project firsthand." "That was extremely irresponsible," Richard exclaimed. "You're an executive director of the bank. Imagine if something happened to you there." Marcus felt anger rising but kept his tone controlled. "What exactly do you think would happen to me there, Richard? It's a community of hard-working people like any other. The same kind of people you've probably never met in person, but don't hesitate to judge." Richard's face reddened. "I'm just pointing out the obvious risks. It's not about prejudice, it's about safety." "If you really believe that, you should visit the community with me next time," Marcus challenged. "It would be enlightening for our project assessment." Richard visibly recoiled at the suggestion. "I have a very busy schedule in the coming weeks." "I'm sure you do," Marcus replied with mild irony. "But the offer stands." After Richard left, Marcus received a message from Michelle asking about his day. As he replied, telling her about meeting his old teacher, an idea struck him. What if the project wasn't limited to banking services, but also included an educational component? Perhaps a space in the bank itself for workshops and talks on financial literacy, entrepreneurship, basic investments. Excited by the possibility, he began sketching out this new dimension of the project. He was so absorbed that he didn't notice the time until Barbara knocked on his door, already ready to leave. "Dr. Marcus, sorry to interrupt, but it's almost 8 p.m. Didn't you have that dinner with your wife tonight?" "Oh my God, our anniversary," exclaimed Marcus, suddenly remembering the commitment. "Thank you for reminding me, Barbara." He quickly gathered his belongings, sent Michelle a message saying he was on his way, and rushed to the elevator. In the lobby, he found Miss Eleanor finishing her shift. "In a hurry, Doctor?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Wedding anniversary, Miss Eleanor. 7 years with the most patient woman in the world. Go on, son. The bank will still be here tomorrow, but moments with the ones we love don't come back." Marcus smiled, grateful for the simple wisdom of that extraordinary woman. The restaurant chosen for the celebration was in Lincoln Park, overlooking the lake. Michelle, stunning in a blue dress, was already waiting at the table when he arrived, nearly 30 minutes late. 1,000 apologies. "For being late," he said, kissing her and handing her a small gift he had bought weeks earlier. "I'm used to sharing you with work," she replied without reproach, "but you'll have to make it up to me with an extra dessert." During dinner, Marcus shared his progress on the project and the unexpected meeting with Mrs. Coleman. Michelle listened attentively, offering valuable suggestions for the educational component he had envisioned. "You could partner with local universities," she suggested. "I'm sure the University of Chicago would be interested in a project like this. Business and economic students could intern as financial educators in the communities." "That's a brilliant idea," exclaimed Marcus, "and it would strengthen the project's legitimacy in the eyes of the board." "Always thinking strategically," Michelle observed with a smile. "But honey, today is our anniversary. Can we talk about something other than the bank?" Marcus laughed, realizing he had gotten absorbed in work again. "You're absolutely right. Let's talk about that trip we've always promised to take to Hawaii." The following month was intense for Marcus and the committee. The final version of the pilot project was nearly complete, with significant contributions from all members. Even Richard, who had softened his opposition after some of his concerns were legitimately incorporated into the plan. On the morning of the final presentation to the full board, Marcus received troubling news. Ms. Eleanor had been transferred to a branch in Hammond, a city in the Chicago metropolitan area, over an hour away from her home in South Side. Transferred? How? Marcus asked Barbara, who had brought him the information. Why? Officially for operational necessity, Barbara replied with clear discomfort. But everyone's saying it's because of her closeness to you. Seems some people didn't like that she was feeding you information. Marcus felt his blood boil. The transfer was clearly retaliation, a way to isolate Eleanor and send him a message. His first instinct was to confront Thompson immediately, but he held back. The project presentation was in less than 2 hours, and he couldn't risk jeopardizing it with a confrontation before the meeting. Barbara, please schedule a meeting with HR first thing tomorrow. I want to understand exactly how this transfer decision was made. Yes, sir, Barbara replied, visibly relieved by his controlled reaction. Marcus took a deep breath, focusing on the upcoming presentation. The project was more important than ever now, not just for the benefits it would bring to the communities, but also for the message it would send within the institution itself. The meeting room was packed when Marcus and the rest of the committee entered. In addition to the full board, regional managers and representatives from key departments were present. Thompson opened the session with a formal introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will hear the final presentation from the Financial Inclusion Project Evaluation Committee. Dr. Williams, please proceed. Marcus stood up, discreetly adjusting his tie. This was the moment he had worked toward over the past few weeks. With clarity and conviction, he presented the project in detail, highlighting not only its business potential, but also the positive social impact and competitive advantage it would bring to NIB as a pioneer in this type of initiative in Chicago. Vanessa supplemented with demographic data and case studies from similar projects in other U.S. cities. Jonathan presented the detailed financial plan with conservative projections that still demonstrated viability. And, to many surprise, Richard offered a balanced risk analysis, acknowledging the challenges but also the mitigation mechanisms built into the plan. When the formal presentation ended, a round of questions followed. Some board members expressed legitimate concerns, while others showed enthusiasm. Marcus and the committee answered all inquiries with preparation and transparency. Finally, Thompson spoke up. I thank the committee for their exceptional work. The presentation was thorough and convincing. Considering the plan's solidity and the potential benefits, both commercial and reputational, I'm inclined to approve the pilot project. A murmur spread through the room. Though Thompson's leanings were expected, the formal statement carried significant weight. However, he continued, I'd like to hear each director's opinion before making a final decision. One by one, the directors voiced their positions. Most expressed support, some with genuine enthusiasm, others with caution. When it was Richard's turn, everyone waited with anticipation. As a committee member, I had ample opportunity to voice my concerns, many of which were adequately addressed in the final plan, he said seriously. While I still see risks, I recognize that the pilot is a prudent way to test the concept before a broader commitment. Therefore, I don't oppose approval. Marcus could barely hide his surprise at Richard's moderate stance. Could he actually have been convinced by the project's merits? After all the statements, Thompson made the formal announcement. The Bronx Financial Inclusion Project is officially approved, with a launch scheduled in 90 days. Marcus, you will be directly responsible for implementation, with support from the relevant departments. Polite applause followed the announcement. Marcus felt a mix of relief, pride, and determination. This was only the beginning of a long journey, but it represented a significant victory. After the meeting, as Marcus received congratulations from colleagues, Tamara approached with a smile. Congratulations, Marcus. I know how much this means to you. Thank you, Tamara. I couldn't have done it without your support and guidance. So you would have found your way, she assured him. But we need to talk about another urgent matter. I heard about Miss Eleanor's transfer. Yes, I'll handle it tomorrow with HR. Be careful, Tamara warned, lowering her voice. This is a test to see how you react. If you confront it directly, you might create unnecessary resistance. Remember, we're playing the long game here. Marcus considered the advice carefully. What do you suggest then? Use your strengthened position after the project's approval. Bring Ms. Eleanor onto the team for the new Bronx agency. She has decades of experience and knows the bank like few others. She'd be a valuable and justifiable addition. The suggestion was brilliant. Instead of confronting the transfer directly, she would turn the situation into something positive for everyone, especially for Eleanor. "Tamara, you're brilliant," said Marcus with admiration. "No, I just have more years of experience navigating these waters," she replied with an enigmatic smile. When he returned to his office, Marcus found a message from Michelle, congratulating him on the project's approval. She had already been informed by Vanessa Carter, with whom she had developed a friendship after a university charity event. "I'm proud of you, love. I'm already thinking about how the college can get involved in the educational component. Shall we celebrate at home tonight? Emma made a special drawing for Daddy, the bank director." The message brought a smile to Marcus's face. Amid all the professional battles, his family's support was his safe harbor. In the following weeks, Marcus dove into implementing the project. Choosing the location for the branch in the Bronx, recruiting and training the team, developing specific financial products, every aspect required meticulous attention. Following Tamara's suggestion, he managed to incorporate Ms. Eleanor into the project team as a community consultant, a position created specifically to leverage her knowledge of the local community and the institution. The initial resistance from human resources was quickly overcome when Dr. Thompson, impressed by the proposal's logic, gave his personal approval. A month before the planned opening, Marcus organized an official visit by the board to the chosen site for the branch. It was important for the executives to see firsthand the community they intended to serve. Except for 2 directors who claimed prior commitments, the entire executive group attended, including, to Marcus's surprise, Richard Harrison. The visit included not only the future branch space, but also a tour of the community, organized in partnership with local leaders. The directors met small business owners who could benefit from the services, visited a community center where financial education workshops would take place, and spoke with residents about their needs and expectations. During lunch at a local restaurant, Dr. Thompson spoke up. "I'll admit I had my doubts about this project," he said, looking directly at Marcus. "But seeing firsthand the potential and enthusiasm of the community has convinced me we're on the right path. The NIB has a responsibility not just to generate profits for its shareholders, but also to contribute positively to the society where it operates." The speech surprised Marcus, who had never heard Dr. Thompson speak with such conviction about social responsibility. Perhaps the president truly was changing his perspective, or maybe he just recognized the winds of change and was strategically adapting. Either way, his public support strengthened the project. On the eve of the opening, while overseeing final preparations at the branch, Marcus received an unexpected visit from Richard Harrison. "Impressive what you've accomplished in such a short time," Richard remarked, observing the modern and welcoming space so different from the bank's traditional branches with their cold marble and overt security. "Thank you, Richard," Marcus replied cautiously, still unsure of his colleague's true intentions. "It was a team effort." "Yes, I noticed," Richard agreed, walking around. "You know, Williams, when you first arrived, many of us thought you were just here to fill some diversity quota, a symbol for the bank to show it's evolving." Marcus felt his stomach tighten at the brutal honesty, but remained composed. "And what do you think now?" Richard hesitated, as if carefully choosing his words. "I think we may have more to learn from you than we imagined. This project is unlike anything we've done before. If it works, it could fundamentally change how we operate." "That's precisely the goal," Marcus confirmed. "I still have my reservations," Richard admitted, "but I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. If the results prove out, I'll support expanding the program to other communities." The statement was more than Marcus had ever expected from Richard. It wasn't complete surrender, but it represented a significant opening. "I appreciate your honesty, Richard, and I respect your legitimate concerns. This is a pilot project precisely so we can learn and adjust as needed." The 2 men shook hands with a new mutual understanding. They weren't friends, they probably never would be, but they had found common professional ground based on reluctant respect. The day of the opening dawned sunny, as is common in Chicago. A small crowd had already gathered outside the agency before the official opening time. Local officials, bank executives, journalists, and most importantly, community residents awaited the historic moment. Marcus, impeccable in his suit but visibly moved, was accompanied by Michelle and Emma at the ceremony. Also present were Tamara, who had supported him so much, Miss Eleanor, whose wisdom had been crucial, and to his surprise and emotion, Mrs. Coleman, specially invited for the event. When it was time for speeches, Dr. Thompson spoke first as the Bank's president, highlighting the institution's commitment to innovation and inclusion. Next, a community leader expressed the hope the initiative represented for residents. Finally, Marcus was called to the small makeshift stage. Looking at the diverse crowd, Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about a bank opening a branch. It was about breaking barriers, challenging deep-seated prejudices, and creating new possibilities for people who had been systematically excluded from the traditional financial system. When I was a child, growing up not far from here in Southside, he began, I rarely saw people like me in leadership positions. Banks, for me and many of my friends, were intimidating places, far removed from our reality. He paused, emotional, before continuing. Today, we're changing that narrative. This branch isn't just a place for financial transactions, it's a space of possibilities, education, and transformation. They're a place where everyone is welcome, no matter their zip code, last name, or skin color. As he looked at the audience, Marcus saw tear-filled eyes, even those of Dr. Thompson, usually so reserved. Perhaps the president was truly understanding the human impact behind the projected numbers. This is just the beginning, Marcus concluded. Together we're building a new model of banking, more inclusive, more just, and, I firmly believe, more successful in the long run, because true success isn't measured just in profits, but in the lives we positively change. The applause was deafening. When Marcus stepped off the stage, Emma hugged him and whispered in his ear, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to work at your bank." Those simple words touched Marcus deeply. This was exactly what he wanted to build, a future where his daughter and all children, no matter their background, could dream without limits imposed by prejudice. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was performed collectively. Marcus, Dr. Thompson, the community leader, and Ms. Eleanor held the ceremonial scissors together, symbolizing the partnership between the bank and the community. The doors opened and people began to enter, many stepping into a bank branch for the first time in their lives. During the cocktail hour that followed, Marcus watched with satisfaction as bank executives, employees, and community members interacted. Invisible barriers seemed to dissolve, at least temporarily. In a quiet moment, Mrs. Coleman approached him. "When you were my student and said you'd change the world, some laughed. I always knew you meant it." "I haven't changed the world yet, Mrs. Coleman," Marcus replied humbly. "Just a small part of it." "That's how you change the world, Marcus," she smiled, holding his hands. "One small part at a time." 6 months after the opening, the preliminary results exceeded even the most optimistic expectations. The branch had reached financial break-even in record time. The microcredit programs showed delinquency rates below the bank's average, and the financial literacy workshops drew participants from diverse communities. At a special board meeting, to evaluate the pilot project, Marcus confidently presented the numbers. "As you can see, we've not only met our operational targets, but created measurable community impact. Over 200 small businesses received financial support, 78% of them led by women. The mentorship program has served more than 500 people, and our satisfaction survey shows a 92% approval rating among users." The presentation was met with genuine enthusiasm. Even the initially skeptical directors acknowledged the undeniable success of the initiative. Dr. Thompson spoke after the presentation. "Marcus, you and your team have done extraordinary work. The board is impressed with the results and has approved expanding the program to 3 more communities in the next 12 months. The news was met with applause. Marcus felt a wave of pride and gratitude. Furthermore, Dr. Thompson continued, the bank has decided to establish a new financial inclusion and social impact division, and we'd like you to lead it. Marcus was momentarily speechless. The creation of a new division was institutional, recognition of the importance of his work, and an opportunity to expand his impact across the entire bank. "It would be an honor, Chairman," he finally replied, "but I'd like to suggest Tamara Jenkins as co-director. Her experience and vision were crucial to this project's success." Dr. Thompson seemed surprised by the suggestion, but nodded after a moment's thought. "Shared leadership could indeed strengthen the initiative. We'll discuss the details later." After the meeting, as Marcus walked through the bank's main lobby, he noticed something different. The two security guards at the entrance were a diverse pair, a black man and a young woman. They greeted him respectfully, without the excessive nervousness or forced formality he'd seen in his early days. In the elevator, a mix of executives, employees, and clients chatted naturally. Marcus realized that while there was still a long way to go, small changes were already visible in the bank's culture. When he reached his office, he found Ms. Eleanor waiting for him. "Dr. Marcus, I came to share some news," she said with a warm smile. "My grandson Darius was selected for the bank's internship program. He starts next month at the Bronx branch." Marcus grinned broadly, genuinely happy. "That's wonderful, Ms. Eleanor. I'm sure he'll do exceptional work." "Oh, he will," she confirmed with a grandmother's pride. "And you know what he told me. He wants to be like you when he graduates, a director who never forgot where he came from." The words touched Marcus deeply. If his example could inspire young people like Darius to dream bigger, all the effort and all the battles were worth it. That evening at home, Marcus shared the news about the new board with Michelle and Emma during dinner. "This is amazing, honey," exclaimed Michelle, filling glasses of wine to celebrate. "You're literally changing the institution from the inside." "There's still a lot of work ahead," Marcus commented, ever the realist. "But today, for the first time since I joined that bank, I felt like I truly belonged there. Not as an exception or a token, but as an integral part of a better future we're building together." "Daddy, can I visit your new bank tomorrow?" asked Emma, who had been following the conversation closely. "Of course you can, sweetheart," Marcus replied, hugging her. "In fact, I think it's time for you to open your first savings account. What do you think?" Emma's eyes sparkled at the idea of having her own account, just like a grown-up. Later, on the apartment balcony, Marcus and Michelle gazed at the city lights and the reflection of the moon on the lake. "You know what occurred to me today?" Marcus said, holding his wife's hand. "That incident on my first day when I was stopped by security, it was humiliating and unfair, but maybe it was necessary." "How so?" Michelle asked, intrigued. "If I had been welcomed like any other executive, maybe I would have settled in. Maybe I would have adapted to the system instead of challenging it. That moment reminded me exactly why I needed to be there, making a difference." Michelle reflected on his words before responding. "Sometimes obstacles show us the way. And you, my love, have always been good at turning obstacles into opportunities." "It's not just me," Marcus corrected. "It's all of us. Tamara, Ms. Eleanor, Vanessa, even Richard in his own way. Everyone who chooses to make a difference where they are, even when it would be easier to stay silent." Marcus's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Dr. Thompson. "Marcus, sorry to call at this hour, but I just left a meeting with the board of directors. They not only approved the new board and the co-leadership with Tamara, but also decided that the financial inclusion program will expand nationwide over the next 2 years, starting in the northeast cities." The news was better than Marcus could have hoped. "That's extraordinary, Chairman. I can't wait to start planning the expansion." "There's one more thing," Dr. Thompson continued, pride in his voice. "The board nominated you for this year's Sustainable Finance Award in the Social Innovation category. The ceremony will be in New York next month. It's a major recognition for you and the bank." After hanging up, Marcus shared the news with Michelle, who hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said, tears in her eyes. "Of everything. You've achieved all the barriers you've overcome, all the lives you're changing." Marcus thought about the long journey since that morning he was stopped at the bank's entrance. He thought of his family, his community, all those who came before him and paved the way. He thought of those who would come after, like young Darius, who would have more opportunities because of the changes now in motion. "This is just the beginning," he said, looking at the horizon of Chicago, the first black capital of the United States, a city of resilience and transformation. Just the beginning. A year later, NIB's financial inclusion program was already operating in 6 communities in Chicago and beginning its expansion to Miami and Atlanta. The Financial Inclusion and Social Impact Division, led by Marcus and Tamara, had become one of the bank's most dynamic and respected departments. On a special morning, the main lobby of the headquarters was decorated for an unusual ceremony. The bank was celebrating its 100-year history with the unveiling of a mural that honored its journey and pointed toward the future. Among the prominent figures featured on the mural were the bank's founders, historic presidents, and, to Marcus's surprise, his own face alongside a depiction of the Bronx branch. During the ceremony, Dr. Thompson, now about to retire after decades at the helm, gave an emotional speech. "On the centennial of the National Investment Bank, we celebrate not just our history, but above all, our ability to evolve and reinvent ourselves. The pioneering work led by Marcus Williams and his team represents the future we want to build, a bank truly for all Americans." After the ceremony, as guests mingled in the lobby, Marcus crossed paths again with the 2 security guards who had stopped him on his first day. Both now held different positions. Terrence coordinated the bank's inclusive security training program, and Dwayne worked as a customer service supervisor at the Bronx branch. "Doctor." "Marcus," Terrence greeted him with a firm handshake and steady gaze, no trace of his earlier nervousness. "Congratulations on the recognition. You turned a tough moment into something that helped so many people." "Including us," Dwayne added. "That day changed our lives too, for the better." Marcus smiled, acknowledging how much they had all grown from the experience. "What matters is that we're building a bank where that kind of situation won't happen again," he replied. "A place where everyone is treated with dignity from the moment they walk through the door." That evening, a smaller, more intimate celebration took place at the Bronx branch. Employees, clients, and community members gathered to mark the unit's first anniversary. Among the attendees were Ms. Eleanor, now officially the bank's senior community relations advisor, Mrs. Coleman, who volunteered as coordinator of a financial literacy program for children, and Darius, Ms. Eleanor's nephew, who had excelled as an intern and had just been hired full-time. Emma, now 6 years old, darted between the guests, proud of her little savings account, which already held her weekly earnings. Michelle chatted animatedly with entrepreneurial mothers who had participated in the microloan program. Watching the scene, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey hadn't been easy, and there was still much to do, but every step taken represented an important victory. Tamara approached, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "A toast to the start of a quiet revolution?" she proposed with a knowing smile. "To the revolution," Marcus agreed, raising his glass, "and to everyone who made it possible." The clink of glasses blended with the lively conversations and laughter filling the room. There, in that space that symbolized so much, Marcus understood that his true mission went far beyond overcoming personal barriers or proving his worth. It was about forging new paths, tearing down invisible walls, and building bridges where divisions once stood. It was about transforming institutions from the inside out, so the next generations would face fewer obstacles and more opportunities. As he caught his reflection in the window pane, Marcus saw not just the executive in his impeccable suit, but also the boy from the South Side who had dreamed of a fairer world. Both smiled, recognizing that the journey, with all its challenges, had been worth every step. The end and you. Have you ever been in a situation where your identity was unfairly questioned? What did you think of the transformation Marcus led at the bank? Share your experiences in the comments, and don't forget to leave your like. If you enjoyed this story of overcoming challenges and transformation, subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming and inspiring narratives that spark change.